my kid's room, he had some kind of stencil. But just keep experimenting. This was like, I started taking classes with Lisa Congdon. Oh, I see many ladies that I recognize.
Yay!
That's great.
Awesome. Hey, Katie. People have reached out and said how much they loved the piece about you and how inspired they were. And
that's nice.
And I know that a few people at least were like, I started right away. I started journaling. Someone else started collaging. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Yeah. So in 2014, you, at the very first day of the year, you decided you were going to start journaling and you were going to do half a page, like you set yourself up for success. And you mentioned a couple of times, like this was before you got sober. And then it was the following year that you did. And as I worked through the piece and read over your words again and again, I'm like, you know, that's very interesting, because I think a lot of people would think, well, I've got to do this all at once, or like in order to get sober, I had to journal. So have you thought about that? Have you reflected on like the like how those two things fit together? Like what that year of journaling, like did it lead to the courage to get sober, or just to realizing that even that it might be interesting? Or like, I would love to know about that.
Yeah, I definitely think, I have to like touch it when I talk about it. I definitely think that it was my intuition, my knowing that this is what I needed to do before I got, so I couldn't see it. I couldn't even conceptualize it. It really wasn't that much of a thought in my head that year. But on some kind of base level, I knew that I needed to return to myself some way. I needed to practice, like I think I said in the interview, I needed to practice like keeping my word to myself. And so when I would keep breaking my word to myself, I would just feel lower and lower and lower. And so starting and buying like a $5 journal at the art supply store and opening it up on January 1st, you know, I usually pick a word for the year. The word for the year this year was the word acceptance, which was just what I picked. And that was on the January 1st entry. I didn't know at that time how much that was going to play a role into ultimately accepting that I had a problem with alcohol, that I had an unhealthy relationship with drinking. I was overindulgent. I put myself in harm's way. I had some consequences, not a lot of consequences. Well, that's not true. Hold on.
I know
there were consequences.
It's like,
yeah. There's consequences that are just being revealed right now in my life from that decision or from those decisions. So, but to sit down and journal and think like in a year I will quit, that never entered my mind. But this gave me the kind of visual meditation. It gave me the time to mull over my days, my nights, my habits, my where I thought I was falling short. It also helped me it wasn't just to beat myself up. For a long time it was, but towards the end of the journal, it starts to morph. You can see it in real time, and seeing what my interests are, what I was writing about, and how my shapes would change, and the things that I chose to write in here. If I copied a poem, or there's like a Shel Silverstein poem here, you know, that said, and she loved a little boy very, very much, even more than she loved herself. That was on December 28th of 2014. And it was like, let's get this kind of, let's channel this for good. You know, it was really helpful, but I said I didn't really have an end game other than to finish it. And when I finished it, I was like, well, now what?
Knowing like where it was going to lead, but you knew you wanted to commit to yourself. You knew you wanted to not cheat on yourself. You wanted to show up every morning, do this thing in a manageable, doable way.
Yeah, there was the more when I do reflect, or when I do write about it, and for years I used to write about my sobriety every month until I hit 24 months, and then I write about it every year. and bi-yearly. So I'm watching me morph and change and evolve, and it's making more sense to me. But it amazes me that, yes, that the year prior was really the year, it's included in that. It's very much part of me. Quitting drinking was very much part of this journal. And it wasn't revealed to me until maybe even recently that I look back and I can see all of that, and that the thread was always there and it was leading me. But the other thing that I get really surprised about is, because I'm part of a 12-step program, the big mantra is we only have these 24 hours, right? We only have today. We're not future tripping. So the fact that I intuitively knew to just clock in every day and just try to sit with myself every day for the next 24 hours, I find that I like that revealed itself to me. I like that is what I've been practicing all along. I start at the beginning.
This is I would watch this for hours, by the way. I would watch you flipping through, because there's so much, it's so beautiful. Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that.
So this was the first and second day.
The very first and second day?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's acceptance. And then these were just, like I'm drawing like a kid, just trying to tap into just being, just whatever. This is beet juice and coffee. I just put it on a glass and just put circles. And I would just keep experimenting with crayons, like a white pen. And this was like something I got from my
textures.
Yeah, my kid's room. He had some kind of stencil. I started taking classes with Lisa Congdon, was who I talked about in the interview, and she did a lot of this style. Triangles are kind of a big thing in my family, because there's 3 of us. Mm-hmm. We always talk about how like the triangle is the strongest geometric shape. And so I was really drawn to drawing triangles and circles as well.
I love how everything has such meaning for you, that it's a triangle, not because yeah.
I like to assign meaning to lots of things.
The thing about beet juice, beet, it's a root vegetable, it grows in the ground. It's super grounded. It's super earthy. God.
That was a hard day. I took up the whole page that day. But as the year went on, I started just getting a little more positive. I would hear little things. Like my kid was little, right? So he's watching what was that movie? Nemo, right? Just keep swimming. There's one little fish there. Just all right. So they were like little pep talks that I would have with myself in the morning. And yeah. And as they progress, they changed.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's radically different. Already, I can see a development. Oh, Tammi found her groove. She found something that's interesting, and she's gonna revisit that image or that shape. Or Sharon's vintage. The interview was it's on my blog. When there's a link in my bio, it's an interview with Tammi. It's an extensive interview that talks about how she came to art journaling, her practice, her tools, sobriety, art, and book recommendations.
Hey, Sharon. Yeah. I know Sharon. I'm so happy she's here.
What you're doing is really sophisticated. Because
let me get the color.
Number one, you're sitting there and you're being present. Ooh, yeah. So you're sitting there and being present. Okay, so that's one amazing thing that's happening. Another amazing thing is that you're choosing an image and you're putting that down first, right? Mm-hmm. You've chosen it, so you've identified how you're feeling. And you've chosen an image because you are always collecting images and kind of the night before you do that. And so in the morning, you can look through these images and you select one that you identify with emotionally. So that's the second thing, is you're identifying emotionally. Then the third thing, let's see that. I love
this is just the folder where I keep the images, so that when I wake up, I can see how I feel.
Nice. Okay, and you get to cut them out in the morning, which is nice because you get to
Yes.
do the cutting.
So they're already ready to go in a folder so that I can just say, because I'm focusing on women, I'm using this folder the most. Sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's abstract, but right now it's just women that I'm focusing on.
Yeah. So there's that emotion. So you're realizing where you are emotionally. Then you're doing this creative piece where you're jumping into your creative mind. I mean, you already have, but like where you have these lines and you can fit certain things in, right? The organization. So you use a ruler. So you have all these aspects of like a ruler, you know, as a fellow Virgo, I'm like, yes. When I saw the ruler, I'm like, oh, because it's so straight. And then,
does everybody have a lot of rulers? I don't know. I love them, right? I have a really good one that collapses, and it's like I can carry it with me wherever I go. So yeah, rulers are important.
I have a ruler envy. And so you have that. So you have like free form, and then you have straight, like then you have the organization of the straight lines. Then you have to figure out which gratitudes go where. So you're challenging yourself mentally, while also finally the last bit is that you are thinking in terms of gratitude, you know. So there's a lot going on there. I don't know if people fully I want to like shout this, like I don't know if people fully realize when they look at like, oh, that's cool, she paired up some words, that there's all of that is going on.
Well, also the other thing too, thank you for pointing all of that out. It's just become part of what I do, so I don't think about it too much. I used to worry about making the lines straight because I talk about imperfection, how I want things to be imperfect. But I gotta say, I couldn't do these they wouldn't graphically or visually look how I would want them. I don't want them to be too wonky. When I do want them to be wonky, I do kind of like a mind map, you know, and I'll do it from there. But to do the lines freehand would be too hard for me.
Yeah.
As a Virgo to accept, it would be way too, I would not be an acceptance of that.
Is it a creative constraint? Like, how do you work with like, oh, a short gratitude goes here, a long one goes here, like where you have a long line versus a shorter one? I
just have to think about it in my mind while I'm sitting there, and I'll say, they just come to me, and then I can fit them in where they fit in. I usually have a lot that don't go in because there's not enough space, because like once you start the practice, it just starts happening. So it's really kind of, it is like a meditation. It's really what's happening in that moment, just that moment, how I'm feeling at that time. I can't like write it down. I never write it down and I said, oh, I'm going to add that to the list later. No, I never do that.
Everything you come up with is so beautiful, vibrant, and full of emotion. And I think it's probably so striking because it does come from that moment where you're being present with yourself and feeling a true emotion, which is not like, I mean, my one of my definitions of addiction, you know, is like in sobriety, you're sitting with the discomfort of the feeling you really feel. When you're using or numbing, you're saying, no, I don't want to face that feeling. And so it's a real tool for being with yourself. I mean, and I so admire you for, because of course you can journal and not really see yourself or be totally honest. Of course you can collage and create art and not totally see yourself and be honest, but you chose to be totally present, to look within and use it as a vehicle for that.
I did, and I have to say, with my sobriety, I've absolutely done that. Recently, I was struggling because I'm going through a separation. I was like, how much is my story to tell? You know, my sobriety story, I know what is mine to tell. There's a line in the big book that talks about, you know, restraint of tongue and pen. And I write that down often, and I realize, like, what is mine to tell with this pen? But 2 days ago, when my husband left the house for good, I was in my gratitude. I was thinking, like, what the? I picked this image because I was a little dark, you know, but not. I also didn't want to go full pity party, and I didn't want to kind of stay stuck in that. But it was a hard day, And I was grateful for Steve's non-dramatic departure. And that's like as much as I could come up with. It was as much as I had. And
but that's enough. That's everything. I mean, to be able to, oh my God, to be able to sit there and write that on that day,
yeah,
and find, I mean, that's the practice, right? It's sitting gratitude. It's sitting there and looking in the face of a really painful moment. You know, I think of like when my son goes to his dad's, and every time, and I think, ow, and finding gratitude in that moment means something like what you did, which is, or for me, it would be something like, I am grateful that he has a father who is comfortable showing his love and affection for his son, with whom I feel, you know, I'm grateful that he can be safe there, you know, that like,
yeah,
but that's
the shift,
that's
though.
That's
the shift that we think we talked about in the interview about moving from fear to love, right? So when I'm stuck in fear and I write lists, they couldn't, it doesn't shift my perception of the world or the situation. So some could argue maybe that is, I don't know, maybe some people might think that's fake. Like you're just choosing to look at the brighter side. I have to. These books, the reason I post on Instagram, the reason that I paint or do the work that I do is so that I can find this little pocket of beauty in my life, and I can hopefully like expand it and explode it and radiate it. That's why I do a lot of these rays. I want it to take up more space, but that comes from practice. It doesn't just come. So over the 6.5 years that I've been doing these accountability project at first, which turned into art and the gratitude list getting married together. So because I used to do the art practice, and then when I got assigned to do the 30-day, or suggested to do the 30-day gratitude, 30 item a day gratitude practice, I realized I didn't want 2 practices. I wanted 1. Witnessing other people's gratitudes. When I looked at other people's gratitude lists, I was in a gratitude circle. I am. When I read their gratitudes, it inspires me and helps me, like what you just shared about your son going to his father's. What a beautiful way to look at that. So now I'm probably going to steal that, Amy, in some way, shape, or form. And I will think about, and that's how it starts changing the way you think, starts changing the way that you look at the world. I can invite that in because you just, that was an invitation. You just shared that, and I can interpret it and kind of mull it around, and it'll come out how it comes out for me. That's the power of it. That's how you start changing the way you think, by doing it.
Yeah. Right. And it's true. I find just like a blank page is intimidating, writing a gratitude list is intimidating, because I think so many of us think it's Thanksgiving dinner, which is, you know, problematic for other reasons. And it's not that. And it is because it's that switch in thinking. It's, you know, so maybe a good tip is to say, find something that you're resentful about, or that you're frustrated, that's painful or tender, and then try to like find another angle, not to not feel that way, but to find another dimension of it that is also true. Because it's both true that it pains me to say goodbye to my son. There is also this appreciation at the same time, and that's why it's complex. And I think, I love what Mama Vita said, because I was thinking when you're saying like the rays that's in your art, that it's taking up space. I hadn't thought about that, but I immediately was like, women need to take up more space, because we're asked to like keep your knees shut and keep your hands in your lap, and it's like, you know, keep your hair small, like all that. And it's no. But yeah, the Tammy's beautiful journals seem like a visual manifestation of emotional labor. Yes. And it's so often focused on women. Yeah, that's such a beautiful observation. Yeah, I love that.
Well, taking up more space. Yeah, that is taking up more space. That's interesting. I like that. It's interesting on the page how much space I am taking up now versus what I used to take up. And some of these, let's see.
And also, like taking up the space of going from a half a page to a full page. You know, there are all these.
Right.
I bet we could come up with a lot of different examples of ways that women or somebody who needs to take up more space can take up more space.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see the expansion from the beginning. Um, even something as silly as, well, not silly, but I was noticing when I was going in my bedroom, I now have the bed to myself and I'm only sleeping on a sliver of it. Like the rest of it's perfectly made.
Oh my
And
God.
so,
Yes.
it's like, can I unfurl? Can I take up more space? I looked at the closet, it was all empty except for like 2 shelves of my clothing. I was like, I gave up all that space and I just took this much.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Now I
Oh
get the
my
whole
God.
thing. So yeah, the page,
Yeah.
the closet, the bed, I'm ready to take up more space. So maybe I need a bigger journal, Amy. Maybe I'm gonna need a really big one of those moleskins that are really big. We'll see.
I know when you get up and you're like, you need a tool and you're like, oh, turn in the page.
So journal is important. You can also just use whatever journal you have in your purse. I mean, anything that I use the moleskin journal that has the gridded paper. It's just the black one. And like, I don't have gratitudes in here because I have my separate book this year, but one year I used to just keep gratitudes in the left-hand column.
Mm-hmm.
I put the date.
Yep. Nice.
It was always with me. Like if I was at the drive-through, at the DMV or something, it was always with me. Let's see if there's any more in here.
So great.
But you can just do it as simple as just writing it with a pen. It doesn't have to be fancy. Let's see. Yeah, that's when I started doing some collage in here. I would do a list on one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found a picture that I liked, this girl kissing this horse, I just thought it was sweet. Made a gratitude list out of it. These books just bring me so much pleasure just to have them. When I open them up, I can remember so much. That's why I'm so grateful that I took the time to write these things down in here.
The first page of a journal, I was talking with a friend who was saying that we discovered that we both start on maybe the second or third page of our journals when we start a new one.
Oh, okay.
And it's like this kind of like buffer zone, almost like someone won't find it. Like, oh, nobody wrote in this,
That's funny. They won't go any further. They won't go any more after 2.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just super intimidating.
Well, I have fun with the first page of a journal now. I should tell you. I mean, I didn't do it always, but as the years went on, let's see if this one is it. I started.
Oh my God! So we're not allowed. Frinery does it too. That's funny.
Oh, good. Oh,
what's that?
So I started to get so you said the blank page is intimidating. So on the first page of a journal, I would do my word of the year to try to get me started. So 2017, this is just on the cover of the book. And my word was dare. And so that's how I started that year. Yeah. And then this year, we'll jump to this year. My word for the year was change. And so that's how I kind of dropped into the year, was like by doing the first page first with my word for the year. And then these are all of my words that I considered for the year.
Oh, wow.
There were many.
Wow. Yeah.
So I photocopied that and put it in there. It's a little bit like a diary too. These journals like tell a story. And then I started the first day of the year with 100 gratitudes.
Oh my gosh.
And then I realized this year I want to incorporate some collage or visual. Mm-hmm. So I was playing around in the beginning trying to figure out like how to do it. And then over time I was like, these women just kept presenting themselves to me, these strong female figures that I would find in just magazines. And so they started telling a story of my mood in that morning or that night before. And I would just use one image and kind of riff on it from there. So they're all a little bit different.
Fire. Looks like fire breath coming out.
Right. I was in that kind of a mood, Amy. I love this hand one. I love it a lot.
It's so cool. cool how that hand one reminds me of that video, time-lapse video you posted the other day, which I loved because I love process so much. And it was like Tammi posted this time lapse that showed her like cutting out the image, and one of the images like was these long running legs. So cutting out all the images and then using a ruler to draw the lines radiating out of the body or the head or whatever limb you're using, and then writing in the gratitudes. And it's like that is the unification of like where you were doing the art, and then you were challenged by your sponsor to do the gratitudes, 30 a day. How dare she? And then
I'm so grateful for her now, but yes.
right. And now it's just come together so beautifully. I couldn't imagine them apart, and yet, you know, they yeah, it's really
these journals are so important to me. They tell a story. I can remember where I am on a lot of these pages. I remember by what materials I used or how I was feeling that day. I always say I collage my feelings. I journal obviously I journal my feelings too. And so they very much tell a story where you can see it's pretty dark and sparse in the beginning. And then it starts to fill up and get more color. Reading Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist, he keeps a logbook, and some of them are smaller. He carries them with him. So I gave myself permission to just do that. So I just buy the black moleskins. They're gridded paper because I just like that because it helps me make boxes and make lists. I decorate them. I end up writing the date on the side when it's all done. I add tabs to them for the month. I kind of just make it up as I go. So that's kind of what I teach. There's nothing really too tricky about what I teach other than like I write down my morning routine lately. During this shelter in place, I attend a morning meeting. I write down the daily reading. I do a tarot card pull. I write down what that card is and what resonated for me from that. Write down quotes that people have said through the day or things I hear on a podcast. I just kind of take this, it's like I'm making my own curriculum for life or spirituality or whatever is like kind of bouncing out to me that day. I jot it down. And then I go back when I finished an entire logbook, I go back and I reread it. And so many things pop out of this that give me ideas for future projects, things that I forgot that I just written down one day and I was like, I'll get back to that. So I think it's important if you keep one to actually read it. Read your thoughts, read your own curriculum of stuff that was important to you. I use pens that I like. I put pictures in there. If I go to an art opening, like I went to this Frida Kahlo movie that I loved, and I put that in there and wrote some notes from the movie so I wouldn't forget. It's whatever you want to make it.
Yeah. And I love that it's not strict. It's not strict. Yeah. Proof of life. That's I'm gonna write that down too. Tammy's class is proof of life. Yeah, and I like that it's not. And same, I like that it's not super rulesy the way that bullet journaling is, which is similar to you. I'm like, of course it's meant for me, like bullet journaling organization, you number the page. And then it was like, it was too much upkeep. But I love this idea because it's so free. And also it's like a collecting of everything that interests you that then you can go back through. So for me, that feels very soothing because you know, ideas come and ideas go, and to be able to tuck them away somewhere is comforting.
Yeah. And if there's something in that journal, this is something that I teach too, if there's something that I've taken notes from a class or a workshop, or like I've been helping my mom with some of her medical stuff lately, I'm keeping it's in here, and it might get lost, right? Because it's who knows where to find it. What I do, and this is because I used to be a legal secretary, Amy, so this is very much like a legal secretary move. I photocopy that page and I put it in a file. I put it in my mom's medical file. If I have an idea for a project, I photocopy it, and I have my idea book. So all my ideas are in here. So this is like a photocopy page of a journal page.
Yeah.
It's messy, it's imperfect, it's kind of all over the place. It's ideas for a course, artwork. But I photocopy the pages from the logbook and I put them in here in sleeves, and then I'll work on them. That might sound like a lot of work to somebody or not interested in that. For me, it's how it works so that I don't lose it in here.
Right. Right. And it's a nice way to like cherish and nurture it and kind of swing back around and swing back around and touch it and decide whether you're going to act on the idea or you're going to just just touch base with it. Did you read Big Magic?
Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert. This makes me think of that, whereas the ideas come, and so they're like these little sprites. They come, and either you're going to act on them or they're going to pass through and find another host. And this is a nice way of kind of keeping them warm and keeping connected to the creative ideas. That's awesome.
Yeah, I go through that idea book as well. And so many ideas. I was like, I thought that was a good idea. What was it thinking? Like, ball it up and get it out of there. But some ideas need to marinate, and some ideas just need a place to land, and then to realize like, there's no way I want to do that, or there's no way. Or what I love, what comes out of my idea book is that I go, oh, I could collaborate with so-and-so on this because they know how to do this and I know how to do this. That's been fun to look at collaborations. So yeah, jotting it down, rereading it, seeing what your ideas were, letting them kind of marinate in an idea book has been helpful for me. And I love collaboration. And so that's kind of sometimes what gets born out of that book. That was a hard day. I took up the whole page that day.